All right, what's going on, guys? So, as many of you may know, there is a combat beta going on right now for the new Tier 95 weapons. These weapons are going to be released with the Sanctum of Rebirth. So, I figured I would test these and let you know what I think about them and let Jagex know what I think should be changed. So, first, let's talk about the Insatiable set. This is very similar to the Destruct set, but the Insatiable set is significantly more consistent. What this does is your non-basics will give you 2 stacks of Insatiable. Spending those stacks increase your adrenaline gain by 25%. I'm not 100% sure if this also increases the crit gain from Tsunami. So we'll actually check that now. I wasn't paying attention while I was testing it live, but that is something that happens. Further, the 2-piece bonus, consuming Insatiable reduces the cooldown of Wild Magic by 6 seconds. So what this means is you want to Wild Magic, use 2 basics, usually one of them is G-Conk, and then that will reduce your Wild Magic by 12 seconds. Using 2 basics will be another 3.6. So you basically need to do like one other spender, one more basic, and then your Wild Magic is off cooldown again. Then you just want to rinse and repeat. This is the major loop with this set. It's pretty cool because it gives you stuff to do when your Sunshine and Fracture Staff is on cooldown, which is really important. Additionally, something to keep in mind is that because you need to be using a bunch of moves that aren't channels, you really don't have the time to use Armadale Battle Staff here. Consequently, the special attack we're opting into is Ivan Staff. This is going to be comparable damage. The big selling point of Ivan Staff is it's not a channel. So you'll see that even though we are losing out on a ton of potential crits from Armadale Battle Staff, what we're getting is massive hits. The Destruct set is very similar. The 1-piece bonus gives you 2 stacks of Destruct, and then this increases your adrenaline gain by 35%, so you get even more adrenaline here. But the 2-piece is consuming Destruct has a 35% chance of fully refreshing the cooldown of Wild Magic, which is pretty nuts. Basically, what this is going to mean is that when you're high rolling, the damage you're going to get is really gross, but you have the chance of low rolling here. Testing this on stream, this was not fun to use because even when you are Omega high rolling, it's just comparable to what we already have, and it's just comparable to Insatiable. But if you're low rolling, you just do nothing. So personally, this is my least favorite of the 3 sets. It should be taken into account that this can high roll, and it is really cool when you high roll. When you don't, it just feels so bad. Finally, this is the Corrupt set. The Corrupt set, in my opinion, is the coolest of the 3 sets. The big issue with the Corrupt set is you just don't have a lot of infrastructure in place to really make this set strong. So let me actually equip and get a Corrupt stack so we can look at what it does. So this is what the Corruption stacks do. 1 stack means that our damage over time abilities have a 30% chance to refresh, doing all of their damage and refreshing the cooldown instantly. Super strong when it procs. Obviously, we don't really need to talk about that. Once you get 25 stacks, it deals all of your stacks plus 100% of your magic level as bonus damage. This magic level can be increased by Maniacal and by Overload, so this does add a decent amount of damage. I believe this is per tick. So on paper, this is like relatively interesting. Once you're at 50 stacks, your basic abilities generate 0.6 adrenaline per game tick. All of this is pretty interesting. The big downside is that it doesn't actually matter what this set bonus does because we don't have anything in place that naturally synergizes with damage over time. Well, what I mean is, sure, we have Cinderbanes, which are really good. So on paper, this is going to be really good against Poison bosses, but Sunshine doesn't work with damage over time. Exsanguinate doesn't work with damage over time. And Magma Tempest isn't considered a damage over time ability. We basically don't have that much to synergize together. Now, Metamorphosis does improve our damage over time abilities, but it just doesn't matter because it only lasts 15 seconds. So if these had a passive effect that made a Metamorphosis last 30 seconds, or if Metamorphosis instantly refresh these after one global cooldown. So you Metamorphosis and then you just combust, corrupt, combust, corrupt, combust, corrupt until your Metamorphosis is over. Or if these had a special attack that also was a damage over time on top of, you know, Sunshine improving your damage over time abilities. If all of these things worked, and if the Blood Tithe gave your damage over time plus 12% ability damage, if all of these things worked, I could see this set being really good. But the reality is, this is mutually exclusive from crits. This set does not work with crits because damage over time just can't crit. And then on top of that, you just can't reliably build these stacks while you're doing a Fracture Staff rotation, for instance. So that's the really big downside of this set, is that we just don't have enough stuff in the game that already works with bleeds in order for this to be good. Consequently, I'm not going to test this because it's going to be bad. It's by far the weakest of the three sets. I think, again, this is the coolest of the three, but it just needs more things that synergize with it, or it just needs to work with more stuff in order for this to be good, in my opinion. All right, so now we know what all of the sets do. Let's get into actually testing them. What I'm going to do for this test is I'm just going to set up a Dwarven challenge barrel, and I'm just going to hit the barrel until it's over. Basically, what I'm going to do is during my Fractured Staff, I'm going to, so with the tier 92s, with my Fractured Staff, I'm going to Armadale Battle Staff and G-Conk, and that's basically it. Obviously, I'm going to use my other big hitting abilities like my Omni Power, my Tendrils and all that, but that's going to be like the bulk of my rotation. And then when we're out of the Fractured Staff, we're just going to use Thresholds. So that's the plan. We're going to do one benchmark with this set so that we have a comparison point of the new sets. And then after we compare all the damage numbers, we're going to talk about feel and how I think each set feels. So let's set up a challenge barrel. Okay, so this was about 400,000 damage per minute. Now, I will say my rotations were a little bit scuffed. I didn't sunshine instantly every time I was up, so it probably could have been a little bit higher. My guess is that this benchmarks around 410, 420,000 damage per minute, but that's a good place to start. 400 to 420,000 damage per minute. We'll start there, and then we'll see how this turns out compared to the other sets. Okay, so as you can see, this is a pretty disgusting damage increase. This is almost 22% stronger than just using tier 92s. That's massive. Now, I will say there is a little bit of a feels issue with this set. And what I mean is it feels really good to use. Ivan's Blast is really, really powerful. It feels so good to use. Seeing big numbers, bigger number is more better. The issue is that it feels like the cooldown reduction is a little bit too short. So what I mean is, ideally what you want to do is you want a Wild Magic, G-Conk, ability, Ivan's Blast, rinse and repeat. Wild Magic, G-Conk, ability, Ivan's Blast. That feels super, super good. Super clean rotation, not hard to do, feels really powerful. The issue is doing that leaves just a little bit of time left where you need to use an extra ability, and it just feels like it could be a little bit stronger. So if this cooldown reduction was like 7 seconds instead of 6, I think it'll feel really, really good. It's not a massive deal, but I think that would feel just a little bit better. If they don't change it, I think it's totally fine. As we can see, the damage is there. This is at least 20% stronger. My second Fracture Staff rotation was a little bit scuffed, and I didn't Fracture Staff until a couple seconds later than I normally do. So the damage is 100% there. That minor usability thing I would like to see, but if it doesn't go in, it's not a big deal. Again, the damage is there. Really, really good stuff. Okay, now we're going to show off the Destruct set. This is my least favorite of the 3 sets, but it is still worth showing it off because some of you may like the RNG elements. Personally, I don't, but again, that's the point of testing this. Okay, so this was the Destruct set. Now, during the last rotation, I was high rolling quite a bit, but one of the big issues with the Destruct set is that the resets after the Fractured Staff kind of don't matter because you need to build up to 100% adrenaline, right? So if you're using your wild magic, sure, 2 basics will basically recoup more than the adrenaline that you spend. The issue is that doesn't matter because you just don't have that many abilities you're doing between Fracture Staff rotation ending and I need to build up to 100% to use my Sunshine again. So you do want to use an Omni Power, you want to use a wild magic, but that's really it. So even if you get a refresh, what are you going to do with it, you know? So that's kind of my big issue with this set. And on top of that, we still did less damage. Now, I'm sure if I do this test enough times, I can high roll and hit 500k, maybe even 520k or something nuts, but that's just not very compelling to me. And sure, it is fun to do really big damage and, you know, go wild magic, wild magic, wild magic just over and over and over again, but that's just worse than the instability set. So that's kind of how I feel, is that I think the Destruct set is just not that fun to use, even when you're high rolling, because the low roll just isn't worth it. I've tested this enough times where I don't get a single reset inside my fracture staff, and it's like, okay, this just feels bad. But then there are times where you get 5, 6, 7 resets. I'm like, that's awesome. But even then, over a full duration of, you know, 3 minutes, it didn't feel like I was getting more damage, and I wasn't getting more damage than just using the instability set. So that's kind of my take. I think the Destruct set is just not that fun to use, period. The instability set feels awesome. It could be a little bit stronger, but if it shipped as it is, I'm totally fine with that. The corrupt set needs the most work because, again, it doesn't work with a lot of the stuff in the game. Sunshine doesn't buff up your bleeds. Blood Tithe from using Exsanguinate, this doesn't buff up your bleeds. Magma Tempest isn't considered a bleed. And even if Magma Tempest was considered a bleed, Sunshine not buffing them just feels super bad. And then Metamorphosis does buff them, but it only lasts 15 seconds. So, like, who cares, right? Because you need to give up crits in order to opt into bleeds, not having a bleed ring, not having a set bonus that improves bleeds from your armor, it just feels like we don't have enough. Where even if this corrupt set was mega buffed, it just doesn't feel good to use, even if the effect is the coolest, right? Like, unironically, this would need to be like 5 to 10 times stronger for this to be worth using. And even then, it's still gonna feel bad because you only have 2 bleeds. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done for this to ship to live, in my opinion. If this ships with a bunch of changes, I think it's gonna be so sick. Again, if Sunshine improves your bleeds, if Magma Tempest becomes a bleed, if it either gets a special attack, or if in addition to the 2-stat bonus, it gives Metamorphosis the ability to last 30 seconds or something, or if it makes your Metamorphosis like set these cooldowns to 2 and make it so they always proc their full damage. These are just ideas that I have. I think all of these could make this set really, really cool and really, really powerful. But as it stands, we just don't have stuff that works with bleeds. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you want to see more content like this. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you like the video, feel free to give it a like. If you want to see more content like this and more news coverage, feel free to subscribe. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.